What's going on, everybody? I'm Tom.
I'm Pat.
And I'm Zach.
We're best friends, and you're listening to the Reminiscent Podcast. They say you can't choose your family. Well, you also can't choose which era of music you grew up in. This is a weekly show where we discuss our favorite bands from adolescence and how they continue to shape our lives today. Each week, we'll head back to the early 2000s and take a closer look at the cards we were dealt.
Tom, listen to me right now.
Ooh, listening.
No, I only had a good setup plan, but I didn't have anything to deliver. But I just wanted to get you a little bit hyped for a moment because I know that you're tired. We're recording at night.
Yeah, I mean, we always do. But
I guess that's not really a holiday, but happy night.
Happy night, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I guess usually it's good night, but we're not going to bed yet, so it feels weird to say it like that. So yeah, I've been listening to The Young and the Hopeless this week, and I hadn't really been acquainted with it since then. So I'm realizing how just strong it is front to back, and there was so much left on the table last week. We've been doing these 5 for 5 death matches, kind of like you have an album, I have an album, and we kind of sort through what eventually is going to not lead up to anything, but we've kind of been tracking this top 50 list, or at least we found out about it recently, that Rolling Stone did, basically the top 50 pop punk albums of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Dookie's number 1, Enema's number 2.
My 2 favorite albums of all time.
Right, checks out, totally. We did one of the top 50 last week in The Young and the Hopeless by Good Charlotte, and No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls by Simple Plan was also on that list, kind of unsurprisingly. Also, as you mentioned, that the original or the namesake album, that's not how you phrase that, but Good Charlotte's first album, self-titled, I guess you'd say, also makes that list. This week, it's not 2002, but rather we're going to 2005. Fast forward to our freshman year of high school, and we're going to talk about 2 albums that are kind of shockingly not on that Rolling Stone list. What do you think?
Wait, neither of them are?
No. So we're talking this week, our 2005 Deathmatch is, drumroll, Tom, you want to say yours first?
Yeah, I'm covering A Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic! At the disco.
Yay, it's time to dance. Doot, 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 doot. Them and Hello Goodbye, there was a moment there for that synthy, I don't want to say feminine, but there was definitely a dancier, fun, a lot of fun to be had there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And Brandon Urie, obviously, I don't know if Twitter would try to describe it as a glow up or not, but he's definitely been doing just fine for himself as of late. So,
oh yeah.
But kind of word of mouth, what we all thought he was amongst our group of friends was started off as a Fall Out Boy cover band, which we found out later isn't necessarily true. But I'll be covering From Under the Cork Tree, which also came out in 2005. But that album, shockingly to me, doesn't make Rolling Stone's top 50 list, though Take This to the Grave, Fall Out Boy's freshman effort, did make their top 10. So lots to discuss moving forward. But 2 big albums from our freshman year. It's interesting how to start these off because there's kind of a lot of ground to cover. What's your first memory with yours, or each, or both, or just one of them?
Yeah, both were very important albums throughout freshman and sophomore year of high school. Panic! At the Disco's album, my first, I don't want to say experience, I guess so. I remember being in biology class, and Savannah Johnson, who was this cute little skater chick, I don't know how she got the impression that I wanted the record. Maybe I asked her for it. I don't know. But she burned a CD for me, and she was like, hey, listen to this. She drew on the CD label, and I was just smitten as a kitten.
Wow.
And that was...
What did she draw?
I don't remember. I don't know if she just made a fancy lettering of the album name, but I was
There was care.
There, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's something to be said.
Right. So I obviously could not wait to get it into my home computer in the computer room because it was 2005 and we still had those.
Yeah. Well, it's important to receive a burned CD from someone who isn't the one of three people that normally give me, you know, like
Right.
I think, who was it? Was it Hannah Sorick maybe gave me like the Silver Sun Pickups album Swoon once. And it wasn't, you know, James McCallion or Hannah Beckman or your iTunes library. And it was very exciting because, you know, she's cool, but also, yeah, it's just kind of, you're like out of your element. You're like, I got to either like this music or not. There's a lot of pressure. You don't have like that built up relationship with your other music givers or providers. It's very fun. Burn CDs. You don't really get that anymore, I guess. I guess you just like text Apple Music or Spotify links to people that they get around 4 days later. It's definitely not as romantic, I guess. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. I don't even have anything with the ability to play CDs at this point.
You know, I think my car one broke about 4 months ago, and I just haven't used the CDs in my car anymore, which is, I guess, kind of a bummer. I do still have a Calling Blue Skies CD laying around somewhere that I
Very
gotta
cool.
have to try to burn, but we're not talking about Calling Blue Skies today. I would say was it Time to Dance, or what are the hits off that one? Like, what was it, like the mega stuff with I Write Sins Not Tragedies and everything, or did that come later?
I mean, yeah, that was definitely one of their singles. It's Time to Dance. Lying is the most fun a girl can have without taking her clothes off.
How's that one go?
Is it still me that makes you sweat when you think about in bed?
Is that the one where he's talking about like being at a game show? I don't know. It was very theatrical with that guy from day one, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, they definitely had a thing going on with their...
Oh.
It's the let's get these Tina Hard speeding faster.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Harlequin. Like, it was a big decade for the word Harlequin, right?
Yeah.
I think we've mentioned that before. I think the first song I heard before Time to Dance was James McCallion's with, I think it was like Trisha Barry and Sam Larrin or whoever, but they were listening to The Only Difference Between Martyrdom and Suicide is Press Coverage, which I'm just now kind of realizing what the title says. Like, they were so long. I think both of these like bands could be credited with absurd titles to songs.
Oh, yeah. Famous.
Brand New was up there as well. Yeah, famously. Taking Back Sunday was in that camp. And we'll get more on the similarities between them later because they all reference Wes Anderson movies and things like that, and John Cusack movies, but that's a discussion for later in the podcast. But yeah, oh my God, I'm looking at some of the, like, he was going as hard as a keyboard would let him. It was so weird, like, sweet, shake it up, shake it up. Like, it was almost like he was like rage dancing by himself in a bathroom or something, you know, like getting ready for the big dance or something, but like the only tools he had on him were synths. And it was so, like, he had a knack for rocking out, but it was never inherently terrifying or hard, but it was definitely had an energy to it that was infectious, right? I think that's what I first noticed about it. I was like, wait, what the is happening? It's all so fast, and the lyrics and the song titles are so odd, but I'm definitely not turning it off. I don't know. I just remember it being, I guess, a new sound in a way, right? Like Hello Goodbye was there, and they had their little touchdown turnaround and shimmy shimmy quarter turn. This was kind of in that vein, but there was more of an intensity and more of like it kind of demanded your attention almost.
Yeah, I mean, I am hesitant to use the word revolutionary because I don't think it really was, but I don't
think so either. But
I think in my world it was, right?
Sure. I mean, like, to our untrained ears, and I was thinking about writing an essay for the site about like looking at the Rolling Stone top 50 and looking at like, I don't think we ever claimed to have good tastes in music, but also like we were talking a little bit last week about how Good Charlotte has those lyrics about like, you know, people try to tell me what punk is, but when they see me in the street, I have nothing to say. There's kind of like that edge to the Ramones and those black t-shirts of the era of just like, you know, I can choose to commit assault to prove a level of, you know, like degenerateness or to you if we must, right? I don't know. So like, and I was thinking about the band Wilco, which a friend of mine from college really likes, and bands like that that have kind of like, I guess it's less poppy. Poppy would be the word for it, right? Like less easy to enjoy. We were talking about The Young and the Hopeless and how it was just so front to back, just well-written songs that are easy to find catchy. Like you don't have to work very hard to earn it or like it or love it, right? I guess we were trying to find that balance between like, we were putting a lot of work into our siblings in the form of burn CDs that our parents couldn't read the titles of because there was no parental guides on them. So we would get Blink-182 CDs and stuff. And we studied the shit of the stuff we could get our hands on. And, you know, we didn't come out of that going deep into White Stripes catalogs or anything like that, or even really get into the Strokes. We just, growing up in Erie, you just kind of came across Reptilia when Guitar Hero thinking about back to that top 50 pop punk list, like, man, it's really strange to me that From Under the Cork Tree didn't even make it, but that they chose to pick the not less popular, maybe more of a cult classic to be in a top 10, but then the fact that From Under the Cork Tree wouldn't have made it is because it's softer and more successful. Although that same list had American Idiot on it, so I'm not sure that line of thinking really. And again, a lot of them were on the Rolling Stones list, but I guess where do you feel? I guess I'm trying to make a case for Brandon Urie and where he fits into all of this. I mean, like, he's obviously not Jack White. He's obviously not fucking Julian Casablancas, whatever. But I don't know. I guess I'm trying to work out in my head, like under what circumstances is doing your best disqualify you from having a bad taste in music? Because these are two bands that, like, you wouldn't blare at a party. Like, you wouldn't pick, maybe Dance Dance, I guess, would be the most party-friendly song, or maybe, but you know what I mean? Or it would be a gimmick song to play, like I Write Sins, Not Tragedies, maybe late after everyone's already been drinking or having some fun, I guess. But you're definitely not going to be like, no, I was legitimately listening to this on my way over here. Like, I kind of needed this one today or something. You know, this is my rotation of, like, therapeutic albums. Like, I guess as we sort through some of these, like, less shouted off a rooftop albums, you and I talk about it because we do a show about it. But, and again, sorry to go monologuing on you, but that's kind of where my head's at, looking at some of these particular records, like, because we haven't necessarily gone deep into Dookie or any of, like, the quote unquote street cred versions of, like, what the punk version of this pop punk genre we're talking about is. We're mostly have been sorting through the pop thus far anyway. We haven't gotten to the other stuff, but I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that, or just like, could you feel that when you were, like, kind of the embarrassment that came with it? Embarrassment might be the wrong word, but when you first kind of were listening to these in high school, or did you not have that at all? Or I just wonder where your head's at on all that. And sorry for the scatterbrained nature of what I just diarrheaed all over your audio that you have to edit later.
No, I mean, I listened to A Fever You Can't Sweat Out pretty heavily freshman year. I feel like From Under the Cork Tree came sophomore year, but Sugar We're Going Down absolutely swept the nation. So I felt like listening to that publicly seemed a little more acceptable than A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, which Billboard rated it as the #1 most polarizing album of our time, which I don't know what they consider that to be. So I think there was, like, a greater chance of being spoken shit upon with A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. But From Under the Cork Tree, everyone loved that. And it was a better, how do I say this? It was a full album that people enjoyed, where I feel like for the most part, people who did enjoy A Fever You Can't Sweat Out enjoyed the singles. I enjoy the album as a whole and kind of want to get into the way it flows when we really get into it. But
yeah, I feel like I could only truly enjoyed 4, or even couldn't know. The 4 I know
Sure.
I love. You know, I don't know why I never came across the full album before, but I guess I'll touch on real quick before we do our 5 for 5 in this particular death match. I'll just go monologuing again if you don't mind. It sounds like you're tired, so I'll just keep talking. By the way, we're recording for the first time. Jesse's out of town, and Arlie is laying down next to me. She's being a good girl. I don't think you could possibly have heard her yet, but she only chewed her bed a little bit tonight. So,
and you're in the
I gave her a little
you're
piece
in the
of
kitchen, right? That accounts for the different sound.
Yeah, I'm in the kitchen / dining area. So if the audio sounds a little more open spaced, that's why. So we were pretty good at Little League Baseball when I was a kid. Our age group just kind of throughout from, like, 3rd grade through, you know, senior year, we all kind of stuck together. We're a pretty tight-knit group. We found some success. Like, so in Little League, there's, like, the local region, and then there's states, kind of the middle one. And then if you win that, then you go to the one ESPN shows, kind of the Little League World Series stuff. One of the years we were good enough to go to the middle one, and we went down to Punxsutawney, of all places, and they had little groundhog sculptures everywhere. We got to meet Phil, the groundhog. It was actually fucking incredible for, like, a Pennsylvanian, I guess, to experience. It was like Phil 6 or something. It was awesome. And Corey Bartlett, who I think he was the catcher or something, but I think Sugar We're Going Down had just dropped, like the music video had just dropped on MTV that month or that week, or to me, it must have been that day, or at least in my brain, it makes for a better story. It was probably out already, but just the antlers. And you and I talk about, I don't think I had ever, the chicka chickas, like the dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that, and then I just saw that Corey had the CD in his CD player, I was like, wait a minute. What the is this? Corey, what the is that? You know, just Like, you need to tell me what's going on right now, who the this is, and why you have their CD. You know, like, I was super jealous and couldn't get enough. And he was nice enough to let me listen to that song on repeat while he like had to go to breakfast with his dad or something. But it knocked me off my feet for sure. Just specifically, I guess what would you call that? Palm muted, not even palm muted, but what would you call it? Chicka chicka. What's the technical term?
I think they're called chicka chickas.
Well, chicka chicka it is. From that to the music video that tried to guess what the he was saying, like da da, you know.
Oh my god, the misinterpreted lyrics or whatever.
Yeah, there was like E-Bombs World videos poking fun. It kind of like you did. It did sweep whatever it was, whatever weird level of fame Pete Wentz had kind of taken on. He went on Armchair Expert last year and talked about how Pat, the lead singer, doesn't like a lot of the fame stuff, so he kind of was okay with being the moody starlet, or I guess, or the star that kind of was the Perez Hilton website figure of the band, just so to try to take some of the heat off Pat in the songwriting. But I did later learn while researching this album that he actually went through a suicide attempt before recording, I guess. And we'll get into more of that later. But yeah, knocked me off my fucking feet as soon as I saw that music video and saw Corey Bartlett bobbing his head. We did not make it out of that tournament, but I did get introduced to Fall Out Boy, so not all was lost. And I got to pet Phil 6, I think Phil 7, one of the Phils in Punxsutawney.
Two of my best memories of this band, obviously Sugar We're Going Down was huge. Everyone loved it. We played a mock show in my mom's living room our freshman year of high school. And at the time, you were playing bass and singing, more like rhythmically speaking. I think you were a little shy. And someone who came to the show was like, hey, do you know Sugar We're Going Down? And you did not. So Zach, who was just playing guitar, he wanted to be Angus Young, you know. He hopped on guitar and started singing. And as we were playing, I remember being like, yo, Zach can really sing. So like,
I want to make it so wildly clear that none of us wanted to sing. So like, I was like, I will. But yeah, I had no delusions of, I think throughout us doing music together, I don't think I've ever once spoken positively about my own voice. So it's just like, I'm glad that moment happened, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, first of all, you actually have a pretty damn good voice. But Zach...
Hey, Tom, thanks, man.
After that exact moment, Zach became the singer of our band, and he developed into an insanely good singer and lyricist and all that stuff.
Actually, at that mock show, Adam came. He and Seth came, and Adam picked up a guitar and started shredding to like some brand new solo. Or he just played it better than the guitarist we had at the time. We're like, oh, cool. So Zach's going to sing, and Adam's going to replace the dude that was playing that guitar 2 minutes ago before he left to the bathroom. Cool. So like, actually, it was a very important 7 minutes for all of us. So,
oh yeah,
Adam was probably playing the riffs for that Fall Out Boy song. Now that I think about it.
So there was that, and then in freshman year as well, for someone's literature project, they chose to do a cover of Dance Dance, changing the words to Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre.
Oh my God.
They needed a drummer, so...
Oh my God.
So I downloaded the song and practiced, like listened in the computer room.
Who was this?
All I remember was Doug and Adam were in the group.
Oh.
So I'm practicing this song. I learned the whole thing the day before we were going to perform for the teacher, which, by the way, he couldn't hear any of the lyrics anyway in that band room. But I was another victim of finding a demo version on LimeWire. So for like 2 weeks, I practiced like the wrong version of the song that everything was like totally different towards the middle. So like last minute had to relearn the song and then performed it live, and was very upset with the cymbals that were provided in the band.
Did you get down the dun 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 dun?
Yeah, I mean, it was, the song's pretty basic either way, but like the whole middle of the song was totally different. And I just don't understand how there were so many fucking demo versions in the early 2000s. Like,
if it was the Wild West and there was like nicknames like Slim and like that, you would have been the LimeWire kid for sure.
Well, let's get into the 5. Let's speed it up a little bit. We're already 20 some minutes in. But
You caught me monologuing. And Arlie's getting a little rambunctious. She wants me to pet her. All right, I'll jump through. Double platinum album. I told you how I first listened to it. Quick note, about 2 weeks before recording, the group abandoned 10 songs and wrote 8 new ones, including Sugar We're Going Down.
Jesus.
And Wentz said that, well, this is all Wikipedia, but Wentz claims that the label said the chorus was too wordy and the guitars were too heavy to put on the radio. And luckily that did not end up being the case.
On the radio for a decade.
Right. So I think my first one would be the Punxsutawney memory of it just being like, what the legitimate is going on right now? Because it blew me away. My number 2 is going to be a quick note about, so the art is people looking at a picture of a van in the snow. I guess that's based off of an actual accident they were in driving to New York City to film the video for Grand Theft Autumn / Where Is Your Boy from the album Take This to Your Grave. They obviously survived that incident, but the title is taken from the children's book, The Story of Ferdinand. Wentz was intrigued by, as an adolescent, the story focuses on, of course, a bull named Ferdinand who'd rather sniff flowers under a cork tree than participate in fights and what bulls are normally. Basically your emo poetry stuff that he was probably into at the time. Makes total sense. But I did not know that, and I thought that's my number 2. I thought that was like, oh, okay, that explains it, because I didn't really know what the album art was supposed to be at all until now.
Very cool. I want to give a couple fun facts before I get into my things here, because I think they're really, really awesome. There's some similarities between the two bands. The time they came out, the styles, there was the rumor of Panic at the Disco starting as a Fall Out Boy cover band. I found out that was not true, but it was actually even better. They started out as a Blink-182 cover band.
Yes, I do. I love that, because we were wrong. Well, we were basically correct. We just, that is so funny to me. And because I could even envision him trying to do Patrick Stump stuff.
Right.
Is it Patrick Stump? Better than he could.
I think that's probably where the rumors started. They had very similar vocal styles, range, the kind of like runs
Yuri
that they
would have
do.
done it. It'd kind of be like, I don't know. I don't have an example, actually. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I mean, like the kind of runs that they do that's not super common in like rock or pop punk music. But where the two came together is that the band recorded some demos and sent them to Pete Wentz via LiveJournal. And Pete Wentz signed them to his record label. And that's kind of how they got their start, which is really interesting. They recorded the album with Matt Squire. We've talked about so many bands that he's recorded. Take It Back Sunday, Under Oath. He's moved up to Ariana Grande, Kesha, Demi Lovato. He's also done Simple Plan, Sum 41, Good Charlotte, All Time Low, The Used, and 303. Obviously, the latter being the biggest ticket item in that
Legitimately
list.
My wife's favorite band for a long time. And unironically, she loved 303 when she was in her Warped Tour phase. We don't talk about it much, but that's real. That's super real.
They recorded in College Park, Maryland, which is not far from where I used to live in the DC area. And Zach wrote a lyric about College Park, and I thought that was kind of a little fun fact. The album peaked.
I actually wrote that lyric.
You wrote that lyric.
I did.
Oh, God.
Zach sang it.
Zach.
I'm his Pete Wentz. I was the diva, of course.
The album peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200, went triple platinum, and spent 88 consecutive weeks on the Billboard 200. That is insane.
Are you talking about the song that had No-So in it?
Yeah.
The coffee shop you worked at? Yeah.
Come on.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you wrote Come On, Susan. That's right. Man, that was a fucking banger. I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Maybe.
All right, so here's my official list. The two things that really impressed me the most about this album is it was recorded 3 weeks after the band graduated from high school. To me, that is...
Man, that is depressing to hear.
Well, I think it's super impressive, but also...
No, I mean, like I'm not...
Right, no, but also makes me feel super bad about myself.
Right. Like, Yuri obviously is a talent, but also like, oh, God damn.
Right. So, and the second most impressive thing is... It was... Okay, so this kind of makes sense, but listening back to the album, I feel like the vocal performance wasn't really that strong. Not a lot of vocal production, no harmonies or anything. And when I found out that
it did seem kind of raw at the time.
Yeah, and it's especially interesting since Matt Squire recorded it because he's such a master. This album was recorded in less than a month on a budget of $11,000.
Is that not a lot?
To put that in perspective, before I started working with Taylor Larson, our band reached out about doing a 4-song EP, and he budgeted the project at $7,800 over 15 days to record 4 songs for an EP for just some local band who were nobodies. This band was on Pete Wentz's record label. So $11,000 is like, I'm sure Taylor Swift spends that in an hour on one of her songs.
Well, is there a difference between a label trying to do it on a budget and a dude trying to get a local band to pay money? You know what I mean?
So they had a low budget because it was their debut album, which is just even wildly more
right. That's what I
aggressive.
mean. It's just like, it's not like the one dude seems like he was trying to make money, which is nothing wrong, and he probably was quoting fairly. I'm not saying he wasn't, but then there's another side of things where like an indie label's like, yeah, do it in 11 or less, please, dear God, or none of us are going to survive.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some of that because they're writing a check, they're gambling on the potential success of this band. I mean, they had Matt Squire, which is why the timeline was so pushed. I mean, Brandon did all his vocal parts in like a couple days, which is obviously why it sounds so raw and like not produced with a bunch of harmonies, and like it sounds like there's only one vocal track, which nowadays most places will blend.
It's no death
3.
of a bachelor.
So I thought that was so fascinating and gives me a whole like huge amount of respect for the album after reading that.
I would say that, yeah. I mean, Yuri is just raw talent. Like, it's kind of like the way I was trying to describe the songs. Like Time to Dance, I heard 2 different mixes of it in the LimeWire age.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And neither of them sounded right, but I could feel it in my head. You know, it's just like, I don't know. It's Time to Dance. It's like hopefully they remastered someday and get it right, because it's a fucking banger filled barrel of bops or whatever the we say on the show.
Whatever
but,
you say.
It quite good, and it stinks that the budget was so low, because obviously the perfect version of it with care and tact would have been even bigger, right? But it speaks to the talent, raw talent of Brandon Urie.
Sure.
You know, it's kind of like that personified, which is neat. My next 3 are kind of related to the fact that, do you mind if I just finish it out? There's a few things I want to read. Basically, the band is cinephile the right word for big movie buffs?
I don't know.
Basically, a breakdown of all their songs. They're almost all references to movies they've seen. I referenced this earlier. I guess my point 3 would be the fact that Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, and Fall Out Boy all had 1 obnoxiously long song titles, but 2, they were always referencing kind of the same movies. One of my favorites, Rushmore by Wes Anderson. Sick Transit Gloria is a song title for Brand New. Also, when the Irish guy punches Max in the movie or whatever, Max says, "Tell that Mick he just made my list of things to do today," which is Take This to Your Grave song title by Fall Out Boy, of course. And from the movie High Fidelity, Number One with a Bullet, Taking Back Sunday. Or no, that's a lyric on this from Under the Cork record, and they even named one of the tracks The Music or the Misery, which is another Rob Fleming quote from the 1995 novel by Nick Hornby called High Fidelity, which John Cusack later starred in the film version of. So basically, that's my point 3 will lead into point 4 and 5 as well. Maybe point 4 is the fact that Pete Wentz almost committed suicide before the recording and named one of the songs after that experience. But yeah, a lot of this is all based on movies. A Little Less 16 Candles, a little more Touch Me was originally titled A Little Less Molly Ringwald, a little more Samantha Fox. Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying refers to the Shawshank Redemption. Champagne for My Real Friends, Real Pain for My Sham Friends, taken from by Edward Norton in the 25th Hour. 7 Minutes in Heaven, Ativan Heaven, that's the suicide reference. Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner from Dirty Dancing. Of All the Gin Joints in the World from Humphrey Bogart and Casablanca, also quoted in Ocean's 11. I'm curious which of the 2 movies they took that from, quite frankly. And again, this is another along the lines of what they named their freaking long song titles after, but our lawyer made us change the name of the song so we wouldn't get sued. The track 1 was originally called My Name is David Ruffin and These Are the Temptations, but the band changed it when both the record label and lawyer said, you don't want to with that. So they chose to just immortalize that moment instead. So I guess points through. Well, I can come up with a 4 and a 5 if we need to later in the show, but I kind of bogarted this whole episode anyhow. But hugely into movies, I just thought it was interesting to kind of take a peek at like what they were watching, where they got all that from, and kind of that Taking Back Sunday, brand new, and followed by we're all watching the same movies. I guess they both loved High Fidelity and Wes Anderson. And pretty much every white dude aged 25 to 45 probably watched the same movies and listened to the same shit. So it explains a lot. If the aliens come down, they could probably watch 2 movies and read 1 book and kind of be like, oh, so that's white dudes that grew up in this era. Okay, cool, I get it. This one was easy. I'm glad I got dealt this assignment because they are basic as hell. So anyway, I just thought that was a bit intriguing is all. Because I never knew where the song titles came from.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Being 14, 13, I had no clue either.
Right. And then martyrdom and the difference between martyrdom and suicide. I'm like, I wasn't exactly contemplating the freaking meaning of that song title back in the day. Right. Yuri was like 2 weeks from high school graduation. He's just like, martyrdom, suicide. What's the difference? Just super theatrical. Like, I appreciated the art he put out, but also I hope somebody was checking in on him at the time.
Damn. Is that everything? Is that your whole thing?
Those are all the notes I took. I mean, I guess it's weird when we do these 5 for 5s. Usually we just try to research the albums and say which one's better. I can come up with a legit 4th and a 5th. I didn't want my number 3 to be something that took up 10 minutes of the pod, basically. You know what I mean? So I kind of blew through the song title stuff. But
I mean, that's all interesting because everyone's like, these are so long and so stupid. I mean, I think there was a quote of Patrick Stump or something that was like, the song's over before you finish saying the name, you know?
Yeah.
And
I did like, I guess my point 4 is that Pete wrote the lyrics, Pat wrote the music.
Yeah.
Something they agreed on to heading into this. Kind of the setup they had for Pete was going to take on the fame and Pat was going to stay in the background. So I guess their friendship is kind of also my point 4 about like these are the main 2 driving forces behind the band, something that I kind of knew but didn't know until doing the research for this episode necessarily. You know, and takes us to your grave. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, the spoken word stuff, point 4, subsection B, that they let Pete do some of his goofy poetry stuff like 2/3 of the way through the album. It gets very jarring after like a bunch of good songs that are catchy, you know, just to be like, fear of getting out, you know. But here I am in my kitchen, trying to tug over my whining dog on a podcast. Like, was Pete Wentz's teenage poetry decent? It's like, who's to say, really? You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not so I'm not even going to speak in those terms. But their relationship is something that I also came to appreciate and kind of looking into the band a little bit.
Well, that's also like not too different from kind of what we're doing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I like it. Very cool.
Do you want me to give you my number 5? Because I just came up with one.
Do it.
Oh, sure. Let's blow through it. We're at 35 minutes. Sure. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Kind of the reception of the record seemed to be like immediately positive. Like you said, I guess Fever You Can't Sweat Out was a little more of a controversial thing. But yeah, this kind of swept the generally positive reviews. It didn't make the top 50 pop punk albums of all time, which I thought was kind of a nonsensical choice. But especially because they made a point to put their first one on. But Johnny Loftus of All Music probably had the most telling take on track 8, Sophomore Slump.
So good.
It's so good. But he quoted the lyric, "We're the therapist pumping through your speakers, delivering just what you need. It's obviously time to embrace our inner mall kid." He was writing about, or end quote, but he was writing about like, if you have any needs this summer, they can be filled by almost any song on this album. You know, from the OOOs in track 2 to, or of all the gin joints, I should say, to Sophomore Slump, to 7 Minutes in Heaven, which to me starts off with a really fucking awesome lyric. Not awesome, but just like very telling of where Pete was, I guess is what I'm trying to say. More indicative, not awesome by any means, because I'm about to say what the words are and I realize that they're not awesome. But, you know, I'm sleeping my way out of this one with anyone who lied down. You know, just a super sad guy. Mostly the album was just like dealing with who you actually are type stuff is kind of what he described as later. But yeah, it's heavy, but I guess the reception was immediately like, yeah, cool. These guys are on, it's them now. Okay, bye everybody. You know, like in case you hadn't heard Where's Your Boy Tonight, I Hope He Is a Gentleman, which you probably all have. But in case you haven't, there's an even fucking better record out now for your 2005 summer moody needs. And it's through the marked up eyes of Peter Wentz of Chicago, Illinois. So, yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah, such a great record. I mean, I'll always revisit it fondly. Never really brings any bad thoughts, bad vibes to mind. Just a really great summertime, anytime album.
I was looking at Young and the Hopeless with such, like, we traveled this past weekend to Tulsa to be with Jesse's family, hanging out. And I was listening and I was like, oh my God, Young and the Hopeless was so freaking good, man. And then, but I was listening to From Under the Cork Tree. I'm like, I don't feel as romantic about this because I listen to it all the time. Like that, there was no like decade of separation. I'm just like, yeah, this is a little early in my usual rotation, so I don't feel as like flowery about this one. But no, I still listen to it on the regular. And yeah, I'm interested to hear what your other points about Fever I Can't Sweat Out is, because, Time to Dance was, or I guess all of them, right? I don't know if you have the track list at hand and what kind of your favorites were or what kind of the big ones were. I feel like there were 4 legitimate ones that were on most people's iTunes. Rest in peace, iTunes, by the way.
Yeah, right. It's about damn time. Yeah, looking back, this is a really great album. The thing that I really like about it is, well, for Billboard a decade later said it was one of the most polarizing albums of our time, which makes a lot of sense. I read on their Wikipedia that the band wrote the album in like 2 different phases. There was basically stuff they wrote in high school, and then there was stuff they wrote right before getting into the studio. One half was like more dancey, electronic, and other half was more rock. I believe it was they wanted to let go of the more rock stuff, but they didn't have the budget and the time that most people do in the studio to write 6 new songs. So Matt Squire encouraged the band to keep all of it and then put like an intermission in the middle of the album and market it as a 2-act album. And that plays into like the theatrics of it, which I think was brilliant on Squire's part, all this time later.
Did you pick up on that as a kid?
I didn't. I mean, I noticed that some songs were a little more, what they call Baroque pop or whatever, a little more like Haunted Circus-y, where some were just like straight up rock songs. But I don't think I realized in the sense of like track 1 to track 10 or whatever it is, 13, holy shit, that there was like a
Baroque pop.
Right?
I love the words you're using.
Right. So I should have...
Haunted Circuit. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, they pointed out with intermission, like, okay, this is Act 2, right? But never really occurred to me, but I think that might be a good thing, because, like, if something stands out too much, it's like, oh, maybe not as eloquent as I thought it was. But that was one of my points, that, like, I didn't notice it, so I guess they did it pretty well. And I think it's just so interesting that people have been trying to, if you look at their Wikipedia page, the genres go on forever. Pop punk, emo pop, Baroque pop, electro punk, dance punk, alternative rock. Like
Haunted Circus pop.
I think circus pop, Baroque pop.
Which would be Evanescence. Awesome. Would they be Haunted Circus pop? No, just kidding. Haunted Circus rock. There's a difference.
So, and then...
I'm joking.
Okay, I Write Sins Not Tragedies is kind of what I remember them as. And...
Right. We started one of our early episodes with me...
Yes.
Trying to convince you I had been to a wedding that weekend before we recorded. But it was basically, I was speaking as if I was the narrator in the song, and it took... I fooled you for like 40 seconds. I think I had you going.
It was really good.
I don't know if we can pull the audio, probably not, but...
So, I Write Sins Not Tragedies won the MTV Best Music Video of the 2000s. And
Brandon Urie doesn't around in his music videos.
No.
He just doesn't. Think about how soft 9 in the Afternoon was, and then watch it and see how he's on the floor, like, puke rage yelling the lyrics into the camera lens. Like... He only has one gear, and that's in your fucking face. It's time to dance, motherfuckers. Like his music videos, even me, like he snaps a little bit in me.
Oh,
yeah. Like, no matter how you feel about the new Taylor Swift song, like if it's gonna be a music video with Brandon Urie, it's gonna be a freaking event for sure.
An internet poll rated, I don't know if this is a selection bias, whatever, rated it the #1 music video of all time. How do you feel about that?
I feel fine. Think about the fucking teen child that names a song the only difference between martyrdom and suicide is press coverage. And then think about what music videos that man's going to make throughout the course of his life. And I think, yeah, they're going to be great. Like, this is a theatrical motherfucker, dude. I have no problems believing that. All credit to Brandon Urie for whatever he's done.
Yeah, a masterpiece.
He stays in his lane. He's theatrical. He goes for it hard. He might not rock. Like, he's not, I wouldn't say like, he's not metal. I don't think he tries to be. There's nothing like hard rocking, but he does rock, you know.
Rocked harder than Metallica could ever dream of.
Rocked like, oh, man.
He does backflips on stage. Man, I miss following him on Vine. I miss Vine more than anything.
I don't even like Metallica, but I just hate some of the words you say sometimes. Like, just the sentences that, yeah. Anyway.
So are you
going to see that movie yesterday about the Beatles not existing? Because are you going to jerk off to that movie?
I really like what Bill Conway said about it, saying like, without any exposition, without any background, the Beatles were just like an average band. What made them famous is their background. So without the background, it's not like good music. I was like, oh, Bill, I love you, man.
What about their background is any different than any band? I don't get that.
I don't know. I just like it.
I'm sure you do.
I think that's all I really have. I don't know if that was 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, but dude, 2005 brought the fucking thunder with these two. And
yeah. It was a nice freshman year.
Oh man, there was, and then
can you bring me a copy of that CD? Yeah, I have iTunes. I can bring you fucking anything. Like, technology has made it very easy to do this. I did not have to download a special program to download. Like, it went from I have the Good Charlotte CD and I can burn that until I get another one, to like I can burn you mixes. I can do whatever the you want. I can burn you In Keeping of Secrets of Silent Earth, but make every other song in Blood Red Summer. Like, I got fucking options now. Like, the game has changed for real.
Well, those were the albums of 2005. Should we close it out with the song of the week? And then we can briefly discuss the fact that as people are listening, we are currently together in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Oh, shizzle. Just kidding. No, we're not. Oh, wait. Yes, we are.
Yeah, because this one's going out late.
I'm watching an ant crawl across my floor so I can kill it later when we're done talking. I might just do that now.
Don't just put it outside. You don't need to kill it.
Yeah, I'll just put it outside. You're right. Give me one quick second.
What's your song, man? Is it still fucking Jenny Lewis?
Hey, sorry. I had to take it outside real quick. I definitely did squash it just now. No, nature's great, but like, I don't know. Come on, Ant. I'm recording a pod.
Are you paying rent?
These ants have to deal with the fact that I'm a diva. And my pod moments. I didn't mean to act out like that. Sorry, I think I'm having a panic attack. You know, I actually watched Get Him to the Greek the other day, or rewatched it, I should say. And there's such an actually, all the comedians that are like having a moment right now were kind of in that movie. And Nick Kroll, sorry for speaking out. I think I'm having a panic attack. I don't know. It just kills me. Anyway. John. You go first, as usual, and I'll try to find something that isn't what I've been recommending for the past 3 weeks.
I've been listening to a lot of Vaporwave lately because...
Vaporwave.
I read Ready Player One in 2 days, and I'm not going to lie to you, man. It's been about 2 or 3 days since I finished it, and I am still f***ed up, man.
I'm glad you have been like, you were like, I'm going to get back into reading, and then you picked up Andy Weir's Not Great one.
Right.
You know?
Suffered through it.
Yeah, I mean, Martian's great. So we owe it to him as fans to try to read Artemis, but it's okay if it's not as good as The Martian. I mean, yeah, The Martian rips. But anyway, you went Ready Player One and you liked it a lot, it sounds like.
It's been a while since I've read the Harry Potter books, but I think Ready Player One might actually be my favorite book I've ever read.
Is it the best story to ever take place in Columbus, Ohio?
It's the best thing ever to happen in Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah.
I ain't gonna fight you much.
It got me like real f***ed up. It all centers around like 80s trivia and stuff. And I've always hated most songs that came out of the 80s.
Dude, are you an 80s boy now?
But I have been really liking some of this like 80s revival type stuff in music, like the 1975, right? Taylor Swift's 1989, much of Paramore's new stuff. Anything from the Stranger Things soundtrack. So I've been listening to a lot of Vaporwave lately, and there's a song called Wander Through Me by Forhill, and it is just some really nice chill wave, Vaporwave stuff. All the artwork.
Did we just listen to that on the drive up to Erie? to your dad's Western New York farm.
Oh, you bet we did.
Ooh, I'm glad. And I also enjoyed it with you because we had time together. With Zach, who is going to be on one of the pods very soon because we're about to mine this weekend for episodes on episodes on episodes. So you're going to be hearing class reunion episodes for this foreseeable future, folks. Mine is, Tim Heidecker of Tim and Eric fame has come out with a good amount of comedy in his life, as you all know, and he's made some appearances in the latest Jordan Peele movie, things like that. He's branched out also into the music realm. When I Get Up, on his not necessarily autobiographical breakup record, as he phrases it. I don't think it's ironic. I think he's just actually writing music. But Tim Heidecker makes music, and it's a pretty good song. Music video's not like Tim and Eric funny, but it's humorous. I don't know. It's interesting. I watched the movie he was in called, it's not important. But yeah, it's a pretty good song. I just am picking something that I have also technically heard that isn't Charlie Bliss, even though Charlie Bliss is something everyone needs to listen to. Listen to Charlie Bliss. It's a t-shirt. Buy it. Own it. Live it. Love it.
All right, man. Well, we better get back to our super good times at our 10-year high school reunion.
Yeah, what are we doing recording a pod? We got a bonfire to light and stoke or whatever.
Well, very
I
cool,
actually
man.
do have to let this dog out to go to the bathroom if she's going to bite my balls. She wouldn't do that. There's no scenario where that would happen, but I should take care for her. Usually my lovely wife does while we record these things. So anyway, I love you, man. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
It's been fun. We get to see all of our classmates from high school tomorrow, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, man. Love you too, dude. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. As always, I am just minutes away from packing my bags and heading to Erie with Pat and Zach. So excited. Can't wait to talk about whatever Taylor Swift just announced on Thursday because obviously I am in the past. Let us know what your first experiences with a fever you can't sweat out and from under the cork tree are. We would love to hear that your childhood was exactly like ours. All right, we'll talk to you next week with some road trip episodes. Love you all. Bye.